So you're looking for the answer to a super common question, how to come up with a blog name. Well, stay tuned for this video because today I'm going to share with you how to come up with a blog name, and not just any blog name, but a blog name that you'll love. Hey guys, it's Lee with Simply Smarter Income, helping you to create a profitable blogging business. This channel is all about how to grow your blogging business and other ways to make an income online. So if you're new here, consider subscribing. Okay, so you want to start a blog, but you're not sure what you want to name it. And by now, I'm sure you thought of, all sorts of names, but none of them probably sound quite right. And the reality is that there are several things that you want to think about, right? Before coming up with the name of your blog. And it's also important to know that you're not alone. This is actually a really common issue. In fact, when I first started, I took forever to figure out what my blog name was going to be. And I actually have a few sites or whatever, or a few different blogs, and it took me a long time for each one. So this is a very common issue. But today in this video, I'm going to share with you several ways that are going to really help to speed up that process. And in the end, you're going to be really happy with the name that you've created. Now, the name of your blog is important, right? So let's not, act like it's not. It definitely is. And the name of your blog is actually an indication to your readers and also to those that come across your blog as to, what topics you cover and what you're actually blogging about. So having a great blog name can actually really go a long way with connecting to your audience. Okay, so the first part of what we're going to cover here are primarily questions that you'll want to start out asking yourself, right? Now, these questions are key to think about before zeroing in on your blog name. Now, one of the first questions you might want to ask yourself is, what will your blog be about? Who's your target audience? What will the style and tone of your blog be? Will this blog be the name of, your company or your brand? What does the name of your blog say about your content? That's also something else important. And I know that sounds a little strange, but think about that too. And then also, is your blog name niche down too much, right? So is it too specific? So you need to think about that as well, because that's going to help you to, make sure that you're not making that mistake. And then you also need to think about, is it easy to remember or is it easy to spell? So those are going to be some of the first things that I would definitely ask yourself before you really dive deeply into this process. Next, we're going to talk about some creative ways to actually name your blog. Now, a really simple trick to naming your blog is something that I actually use pretty often, is to basically look at it a certain way, right? So your blog name will be, your audience group or topic plus what your ultimate goal for your blog is, right? So for an example, if you take smartwatches and you take the central location to receive information on the latest smartwatches online, if that's your ultimate goal, so maybe then the name of your blog might be Smartwatch Central, right? Because you want it to be about smartwatches, and you also want this information to be in a central location for people to read about and to find that information. Now, if you try this method and it's not really working very well because maybe those domain names are really hard to come by, or it's very competitive or saturated where you feel like every single domain name is taken. And by the way, I think in any niche is going to definitely feel like that. But if that is a challenge, then, consider a 3-worded blog name, right? So maybe you're going to be taking 3 different words and putting those together, and then that is the actual blog name or the domain name that you end up coming up with. So for instance, one way to go around this might be taking like an adjective plus the audience or group or topic that we just talked about that you want to actually focus on, plus what your ultimate goal for your blog is, right? So again, you might take an example might be what we just used, but adding that adjective in the front, right? So super smartwatch central. That might be another way that you can actually do that. And so that might actually be a really good way for you to come up with a blog name. Again, you might just have to stop there, and maybe you found that blog name just by using something like that. You can also use, blended words. So if you think about other words that we use in the English language, for instance, right? Like brunch, like breakfast and lunch together, or motel, or smog, or email, right? Like electronic mail. Like all of these words are basically blended words. They're 2 words that are put together. So you can also use something like that to come up with a great blog name. So depending on what your niche is, depending on what your topics are, maybe there's a chance for you to actually take some of those different words out there that are related to your niche, right? And then basically just blend those together, and then boom, that is your domain name and that is your blog name, right? So that is another way. Another way you can come up with a great blog name is to use online blog name generators. Now, I know that sounds a little weird. You're like, wait, what are you talking about? Wait a minute, right? But you can actually do a quick Google search and just look for like I said, blog name generators. And what you'll do is you'll find different sites that you can just plug in little bits of information and it will basically just spit out a really long list of potential blog names for you. And, you might not find the exact blog name that you're looking for. And you might find some weird stuff in there too. But if you take a look at it and you look really closely, it's going to, number one, show you the actual blog name that you might want to actually pick and you probably will love, or it's going to give you a really, really good idea of a blog name. So maybe you can just take one that you like the most, tweak it a little bit, and then boom, that's your blog name. So that's another way. Another way that has really been helpful for me, that I've used a lot as well, especially when entering into different niches or whatever, is to use the Thesaurus, right? Think about different words that are associated with your niche and look those up in the Thesaurus. And what that's going to do is going to show you different words that are similar or very closely related to whatever that word is you put in there. Obviously, we all know how to use a thesaurus, but that is going to really help you to brainstorm and think of other words or different renditions of other sort of blog names that you've come up with along the way. And perhaps you'll actually find or land on the blog name that ultimately becomes the name of your blog. Another thing you can do is you can take a really close look at your competition. So as you know, with blogging, right, I'm always really a big fan of looking at your competition and seeing what they are doing as well. Now, I don't mean that you need to copy them, but what I mean is look at what your competition is doing and look to see if there are any trends in your particular niche, right? So for instance, if in your niche, the words central are something that you see all the time, right? So it could be about ring lights, right? I have a ring light over here. So it could be ring light central, right? And that's your blog name or whatever, right? You could think about that. If it's a technology niche, right? You see the words tech used a whole lot in different blogs. Or different websites, different brands, they all use that word tech somewhere in there. So maybe that's something that you might want to think about using in your name as well. Because why? Well, because people who are interested in that niche, they see those words already, they're familiar with them, and it's sort of synonymous with what your blog is going to be about. So when they see your blog name, it's something that might click to them. They might say, oh, okay, that's like this other blog that I saw. It's going to be about the same thing probably, right? And so that's going to basically help to create a little bit of recognition stumbling across your blog. So it's also just something important to think about. Now, another thing you might want to consider as well is using your own name. Now, this is going to work especially well if you have a unique name, right? Now, if you do have a really common name, it can also still benefit you as well. But the only challenge there is that you might have a really hard time finding that domain name available with your name, because again, there's so many people out there with that name, right? So again, that's something that you also might want to consider. And this is going to be really great if you are wanting to be the face of your brand, right? Or if you want people to know you for that one thing that you do really well, right? And maybe your name is the best way to go, right? So that's also something else to consider when it comes down to coming up with a blog name. Now, if you made it this far in the video and you found this video to be helpful, go ahead and leave a thumbs up sign for me. Also, if you haven't already, be sure to hit the subscribe button with the notifications bell for more videos just like this every Thursday. I really appreciate you watching, and I'll see you next time.